Man who stabbed a 9-year-old girl to death in Boston, Lincolnshire, has just been jailed for life. What an absolute horrid piece of vermin. And that is putting it kindly. Now, this happened in 2022, and I hadn't even heard of this up until a couple of weeks ago when someone had sent me the email and said, can you cover this story? But obviously I was wanting to wait until he was sentenced so I can come on and give you the true facts. And he has been jailed for life with a minimum of 25 years. I will tell you the full story in a second, but this is absolutely outrageous. I mean, this case everybody should be well aware of this in the UK. Anytime an infant, a little one, junior, has been killed in this manner, it should be all over headlines everywhere. Everybody should know about it, like we do with other high-profile cases, with high-profile bacons, shall we call them, because that's exactly what they are. A bacon comes under a few different categories, and this is one of them. A bacon is obviously a nonce, because some of the new subscribers keep saying, could you please tell us what it is? A bacon is a nonce. We all know what a nonce is, an S offender. And that's prison slang for them. But a bacon is a nonce, but someone like this is classed as a nonce and a bacon in prison. Even though he hasn't done anything sexual to the little one, he's still classed as a bacon. Anyone that commits crimes or kills little ones or does anything else to them, like what I've just mentioned, being a bacon, then they are all classed as bacons, nonces, and they're all down on the nonce wings inside a prison. And that's exactly where he will be going. Now, there was a couple of things when I've read this case a couple of weeks back, and again now, I will just go over it and then I will tell you what I was thinking. But Boston in Lincolnshire does have a Lithuanian community, and this little one, this 9-year-old, is also a Lithuanian as well. So a man who stabbed a 9-year-old girl to death as she played in the street has been jailed for life with a minimum of 25 years. Deividas Skebas attacked Lilia Valutyte outside the shop where her mother was working in Fountain Lane, Boston, Lincolnshire in July 2022. She was outside playing in the street on a hot summer's day during the school holidays, and that absolute wrong'un went up to her in the street, put one through her heart and just killed her there and then. What sort of fucking man? He's not even classed as a man. What sort of monster would do that? But when you hear about it as well, about the excuses and the reasoning behind it. So the Lithuanian national who had been diagnosed with schizophrenia admitted killing her, but had denied murder, claiming diminished responsibility. Absolute bullshit. He was found guilty after a trial earlier this month. The 26-year-old appeared at Lincoln Crown Court for sentencing via a video link from Rampton High Security Hospital. Put him in the prison where he belongs. Get him out the fucking hospital, as you will see when I get further down. Passing a life sentence, Judge Mr. Justice Aklak Chowdhury told Skebas, yours was a shocking and horrific act of violence. Nothing I can do or say today can relive the pain of losing Lilia. During the trial, jurors were told that Skebas had a history of mental health issues and had been detained in hospital under the Mental Health Act in 2020. He was discharged from the hospital and returned to Lithuania, but legally re-entered the UK on the 2nd of July 2022, less than 4 weeks before he murdered Lilia on the 28th of July. Now, this is another case of being let down by the UK system, because if he was in a mental hospital, he'd been detained because of mental health issues, obviously violent tendencies. Obviously back then he was having violence tendencies. He's been detained. He's returned to Lithuania, but then went back into the UK legally 2 years later, if you're a fucking schizophrenic and you're a risk of harming members of the public, you should not be allowed inside of the fucking UK if you're not from the UK. So he was initially found unfit to stand trial, and a trial of fact was held a year later when a jury found Skebas had carried out the killing. He only faced trial for murder following an improvement in his mental health. A report by 3 psychiatrists said Skebas had schizophrenia and was showing symptoms of psychosis on the day he killed Lilia. CCTV footage from the scene showed him watching Lilia play with the hula hoop in the moments before he walked up and stabbed her. He then ran from the scene. So if you are suffering like that, obviously people do suffer, you wouldn't do something to a young'un like that. You would know something's not right, something's wrong. Then you would go and get help, get sectioned. Don't carry out the fucking act. You still know what you're doing to some extent. You ran from the scene. Why not stand there screaming yourself, not knowing what you've done? But no, he's ran from the scene. Seems like there's a bit of premeditation there. The court heard he had bought the murder weapon, a paring knife, 2 days earlier from a nearby Wilko shop. After the killing, he contacted family in Lithuania asking for money in order to leave the country. He also shaved off his beard. Now, does that sound like someone who's been suffering from schizophrenia and you've just done it on a random act of violence because you couldn't control your schizophrenia? Afterwards, you're then asking your family for money to leave the country and you've shaved off your beard. What the fuck does that say? You know exactly what you were doing. The jury rejected Skebas' claims of diminished responsibility after the prosecution argued the killing was a wicked act and was deliberate and planned, but that's exactly what it seems like. During the sentencing hearing, prosecutor Christopher Donnellan KC said Lilia was a particularly vulnerable victim, obviously, and he circled around and went back. It just fucking beggars belief. It's absolutely outrageous. He said there was no need for further Andrew Campbell, TX, mitigating, told the court Skebas had a serious and dangerous condition for many years. He said there was no need further to stigmatise the appalling act that he performed in the midst of a mental health crisis. No need to further stigmatise the appalling act. I think you need to fucking watch what you're saying in the fucking courtroom. You fucking KC, barrister, fucking twat. The judge said the court had to decide if Skebas' mental state lessened his culpability to an extent. Mr. Justice Chowdhury told Skebas the significant features of planning and a vulnerable victim are balanced by the mitigating features and in particular your mental disorder. He said Skebas made several laps of the area where Lilia was playing and told Skebas at 6:15 p.m. you did the unthinkable. If you were having a psychosis and you fucking didn't know what you were doing, why circle the area, several laps of the area, looking at the little one? There's definitely more to the story than meets the eye here. There's more that has not come to light, I do believe. And he's definitely using his mental health and his previous breakdown as a way to try and get away with this murder. As he did the unthinkable. Lilia's mother heard the daughter scream and came out of her shop. Mr. Justice Chowdhury told the court, as she did, she saw what no parent should ever see. That must have been so difficult and soul destroying for that poor parent, for that poor mother, to witness that. See him running off in the distance and her poor daughter on the floor with a knife penetrating her heart, and she didn't stand a chance. Skebas, this is another reason why I was on about earlier on, right? Skebas showed little emotion as he was sentenced. He's now become better after he's been in hospital. That's why he went and stood the trial, because his mental health has improved. So if his mental health had improved, he was fit enough to stand trial. Surely, if it was a psychosis episode you hadn't realised what you'd done. When you were getting better, you would be tormented knowing what you had done if you hadn't meant to do it and it was diminished responsibility. You would be in bits, especially at the sentencing and especially getting found guilty. Well, no, you would have admitted it, to be honest, not getting found guilty. Especially at the sentencing. He could have turned round, crying his eyes out, saying, full of emotion, saying, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to do this. But no, he showed little emotion. What the fuck does that tell you? It wasn't a psychosis episode through schizophrenia. He will be transferred to prison before the Secretary of State decides whether he will serve his sentence there or at Rampton. Serve it in the prison with the rest of the Bacons, and hopefully someday you might get a prison justice. Lithuanians inside the jail will be keeping an eye out for you, you absolute wrong'un. Lilia's mother, Lena Savic, and stepfather, Aurelius Savicus, were in court for the sentencing, listening to proceedings translated into Lithuanian through headphones. So, a Lithuanian living in the UK has killed a Lithuanian kid. If he was really sorry for what he'd done, and if it was really, like I've reiterated a few times, if it was really an episode he was having because of his schizophrenia, he would have definitely turned around in the dock, crying, showing loads of emotion. Even before he was sentenced, the parents were in the courtroom for the sentencing. He could have turned round and spoke to them in Lithuanian and said sorry, but no. He stood there with no emotions, waiting to hear what sentence he has to serve. Absolutely despicable, outrageous and disgusting piece of shit. Anyways, people, I thought I would bring you that. I was looking at a story. There's loads of different stories coming up, but obviously I'm picking the ones that I think need to be shown on here and need to be broadcast, because I didn't hear about this at the time. Let me know if any of you lot heard about this at the time. This should have been mainstream news. People should have been notified that a 9-year-old had been murdered. It's fucking headline news in the UK if a little one. But no, recently it's becoming the norm over the past 5 years for these type of offences. Little ones getting hurt, and it's not like it was at the time when Ian Huntley committed his murders on them 2 defenceless kids. It was national headlines. Yes, they went missing and there was a manhunt looking for them. But still, when a little one is murdered in such a way, it should be fucking broadcast where every single person in the UK who's either on social media or watching mainstream media knows about it. Not just fucking brushing it under the carpet. So I just thought I would bring that to your attention, people. Hopefully you are still enjoying the content as much as some of the content, or the majority of the content, unless it's about the Bacons getting their justice inside a prison. These stories are heartbreaking and they are hard to go over, but like I've said a million times, I'll bring these stories to you lot on here because you don't hear it in the mainstream media. A lot of you maybe don't even watch the news because it is absolute bullshit, like I don't. But everybody's on social media, and I've not seen anything about this on any Facebook pages or anything like that. So when I went onto my prison news app, it did come up in there, but there's only normally these type of cases, there'd be loads of outlets covering it, but I've only found the one. But I'm just going to show his face. He looks like an absolute horror as well. That horrible wrong'un is now sitting inside a prison on his way to a high security estate. Probably, maybe he's going to somewhere like Wakefield. And he will be mixing with 400 normal location lads And like I've said, there will be a lot of Lithuanians inside of prison. And I do believe if a Lithuanian comes across him, knowing what he's done, because the Lithuanian community will be aware of this. Obviously, the communities like this have their own news outlets, not mainstream outlets, but Facebook pages, different things like that. So a lot of Lithuanians will be talking about this. They will know about this. The majority of them, I do believe, will know about this. Deividas Skebas, the absolute wrong'un. So people, I'm going to leave that one there for now. Hopefully you are still enjoying the content, and if you are, remember to comment, like and subscribe. Take care everyone, but most importantly, stay safe.